This is a Mercedes W124, and this is how it was revealed to the public at the 1984 Seville Auto Show in Spain. This model replaced aging but forever legendary Mercedes W123. The front received its own new distinctive body shape with more inclined roof and pillars and better aerodynamics. This was achieved through meticulous testing in wind tunnel. Its rear part received stoplights with a new iconic design, which is later successfully evolved and used in next generations. This breakthrough was done not just in design but also in mechanical side. For example, the rear suspension had a new multi-link structure with 5 levers on each side with new springs and dampers, and due to this design this car was exceptionally stable in corners. Its safety features changed significantly comparing to its predecessor. Crumple zones were redesigned, ABS added, and a driver's side airbag. W124 was named as one of the safest cars of its time. 7 trim versions went on sale originally with the following indexes: 4 gasoline versions, 200, 230e, 260e, and 300e, and also 3 diesel versions, 200d, 250d, and 300d. And the most interesting at that time was the top version, 300e, that boasted the latest 3-liter inline 6-cylinder engine that produced 190 horsepower. The engine had a cast iron block, aluminum head, and a timing chain, which is generally considered as more reliable. The early version of this engine was paired with manual 5-speed gearbox, and it could do 0 to 60 miles an hour in just 7.8 seconds and a maximum speed of 145 miles an hour.
Recently, Road and Track magazine concluded a search for the world's 5 best cars. After exhaustive testing and analysis, they chose 4 exotic sports cars. And even more significantly, only 1 sedan. The Mercedes-Benz 300e.
All other, less powerful gasoline engine versions had 4-cylinder design with 8 valves. Its basic carbureted 2-liter version put out only 109 horsepower. But due to its excellent aerodynamics, the maximum speed was still impressive and it could reach 120 miles an hour. The next major event in the history of W124 was its station wagon version introduction at the 1985 Frankfurt Motor Show that received S24 index. And a year later, Mercedes 124 introduced all-new 4MATIC 4-wheel drive system. It was electronically controlled by analyzing ABS sensors on the front and rear wheels, brake pedal, and the steering wheel turning angle sensors. The torque distributed 35% to the front and 65% to the rear axle, and then after reaching 20 kilometers an hour, front-wheel drive would cut off. The proportion 35-65 is also activated when it speeds less than 100 kilometers an hour. The sensor can see the wheel rotation difference of at least 2 kilometers an hour. But when the speed is over 100 kilometers an hour, the difference should be no less than 2%. And if the speed is still not equal, then it blocks the main differential and proportion changes to 50-50. But if the speed is less than 38 kilometers an hour, it also blocks the rear differential. This system was used in sedans and station wagon versions 260e, 300e, 300d, and 300d Turbo. Then, during the 1987 Geneva Motor Show, a luxury coupe C124 was presented, or it could rather be called hardtop because it was missing B pillars. This 2-door solution stood out against other 4-door cars and even other coupes, and it looked more expensive and more attractive and unusual. The list of initial versions included 230CE and 300CE, and it could be equipped with 5-speed manual gearboxes or 4-speed automatic. In 1988, sedan received new versions of fuel-injected 200e with 118 horsepower and 250d Turbo with 126 horsepower. The station wagon is now represented with 200TE version. In the same year, ABS and heated mirrors become standard equipment. In 1989, 124 gets the distinctive lower door panels and some minor interior upgrades, and the optional Sportline package, which included stiffer springs and dampers, sport tires, sport seats, Sportline nameplate badges, as well as the leather-wrapped steering wheel and the gear knob. Among other significant events of the 1989 was the entry of the new engine that was installed on the model 300E24, 300CE24 and 300TE24. It is 3-liter inline-six engine with 4 valves per cylinder. That's what 24 stands for. It produced 231 horsepower, and with such a decent power, the sedan and the coupe were able to reach highway speeds up to 150 miles an hour. Its 5-speed manual version time in 0 to 60 miles an hour was less than 7.8 seconds. And in 1990, W124 gets 8-cylinder engine, and of course this was the 500E. This engine had two 16-valve heads and 4 camshafts, chain-driven timing, and a lightweight alloy cylinders. The output of this engine reached 326 horsepower, and even with this quite sluggish 4-speed gearbox, the super sedan was able to do 0 to 60 in just 6.1 seconds. The maximum speed was electronically limited at 250 kilometers an hour. And besides all of these things, 5-liter version received traction control and the rear air suspension. 500E was developed in collaboration with Porsche. Cars were made in the Porsche factory and then delivered to Mercedes-Benz factory for final assembly and the pre-sale preparation. 500E could be distinguished by wider wheel arches, wider tires, as well as the regional fog lamps that were built into the front bumper. In 1991, another version came out. It is the convertible that received A124 naming and the index 300CE24, and it was equipped with 3-liter engine and a slightly reduced 220 horsepower. A year later, another major step, W124 mid-size Mercedes entered a new era of 4-valve per cylinder engines. The horsepower increased accordingly. The Model 200E received 136 horsepower engine, 220E 150 horsepower, 280E received 193 horsepower, and finally 320E with 220 horsepower, and its displacement was increased to 3.2 liters.
8 long years of development are over. Introducing the new Mercedes-Benz 300E. It moves from 0 to 55 in a stunning 7.5 seconds. It moves performance sedan engineering into a new dimension. And it returns to 0 with computerized ABS anti-lock brakes. The new 300E sedan.
And a little later, diesel engines were also upgraded, and an interesting Model 400E appeared in 1992 as well. It had the same engine as the 500E, although its displacement was reduced to 4.2 liters. The power dropped to 279 horsepower. Externally, this model was not any different from the others. However, the front-end architecture was redesigned for this large engine, and parts of the suspension and braking system were borrowed from the SL Coupe R29 that was the model at that time. Paired with 4-speed automatic transmission, it could do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour or 0 to 60 miles an hour in just 7.2 seconds, and a top speed of 250 kilometers an hour. And these tests were done by many car magazines of that time. And one of the most significant events in the history of W124 model happened in 1993. It received E-Class designation.
Executivklasse.
E-Class stands for Executive Class or Business Class. Due to this new naming innovation, now every submodel gets a new letter E designation before the index, like E280 or E300 Turbo Diesel. But as we know earlier, the letter E stood for fuel injection, and this was also done in time for new restyling upgrade that brought new grille integrated into the hood. The front and rear turn signals became clear. The trunk received a slightly different design. Sedan had its own and the coupe slightly different. Its bumpers painted in the same body color, and in this final form, sedan and station wagon stayed until 1995, coupe till 1996, and convertible till 1997. So here it is, the Mercedes-Benz W124. the car that started as a successor of the legendary W123 and ended its production as a new executive class. That's all I have for you today, guys. Check out my channel for my other videos, but for now, thanks for watching and see you in the next one.